best way to get a room?
Oh, my God! She's cracked her head open.
Oh, I'm sure she'll be fine.
Sigourney Weaver and Jennifer Love Hewitt are dirty, rotten scoundrels in extremely tight skirts and Heartbreakers, one of 5 new movies we'll be reviewing this week. I'm Roger Ebert, film critic for the Chicago Sun-Times.
And I'm Richard Roeper, columnist for the Chicago Sun-Times. Heartbreakers is the sting in a pair of boxer shorts and oversized clown shoes. It's a con game caper devoid of subtlety or style. Yet the laughs are frequent due to the superb cast and a script that just keeps hammering away at us. The chief special effect here is Jennifer Love Hewitt's torso, which seems to have its own life force. She's like a mini Erin Brockovich as she seduces a recently married New Jersey chop shop owner, played by Ray Liotta.
Is it hard?
What?
Getting married. I mean, I haven't been here that long, but I've already heard tons of stories about you and women.
Yeah, well, those days are all over, Wendy.
There's more going on there than meets the eye, though we're rarely surprised by the film's setups or supposed twists. The fun of Heartbreakers is the broadly comic turns by the likes of Sigourney Weaver, who's pretending to be a Russian temptress in love with a disgusting tobacco baron, played by Gene Hackman.
Smoking is part of the fun of being a kid. Yeah, we just did some tests on some 9-year-olds. After a little puking, well, you couldn't drag them away from the stuff. Yeah, you're only young once.
Hewitt has her eye on a mark of her own, a tavern owner played by Jason Lee.
I'm hurt. No, you're not. Nothing can hurt you.
Are you calling me a liar?
All right, where are you hurt then?
My ankle. See?
Heartbreakers takes place in movie land, where people fall in love in a snap, where a character can have 13 previous marriages, where a billionaire has no relatives, friends, or business associates to clog up the plot. It's silly, it's contrived, but it's also flat-out funny, and it's sexy in a 1965 Verna Lisi, Angie Dickinson, Raquel Welch kind of way. Weaver, Liotta, and Hackman are all doing hilarious comic variations on characters they've played before. And as for Jennifer Love Hewitt, rarely since Marilyn Monroe has an actress look so naked while keeping her clothes on. It's a credit to her talent that we also notice her smile and her gift for comedy, at least from time to time.
Yeah, she has that, as you mentioned, Erin Brockovich, Britney Spears kind of thing going on, and her neckline is kind of a special effect in this movie. You know, what I liked about it, and I didn't like it as much as you did, actually, probably, is it's slam, bang, roustabout type comedy.
Yeah.
It just doesn't stop to take prisoners. It just goes ahead and goes for... And if
it's relentless.
If a laugh doesn't work, it goes for the next laugh. And I like Gene Hackman, who is basically doing W.C. Fields. And there's a scene here where he goes to play golf, and he is wearing the same costume that Fields wears in his famous short subject where he plays the golf specialist. They say that people smoke too much in the movies. He smokes in every scene in this movie, but I don't think he's going to sell very many cigarettes.
They're not glamorizing it in any way. And Gene Hackman's relentless here. They all are. And Ray Liotta, you know, we've seen him play this guy before with the gold jewelry and the pinky ring, and he's the tough guy. But he's really funny. He's having fun with it. And, you know, actors always talk about how, oh, we took the script and we ad-libbed it and we made it better and we improved it. This time I believe it. I believe that the script itself might not have been so great, but the sheer talent of these big-name stars really carries
Sigourney
the day
Weaver,
with Heartbreakers.
funny too.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Actually, I like our next comedy better, though. I got to tell you that. Our next movie is a playful comedy considering man's first moon landing from the point of view of the Australians who manned the giant radio telescope that was assigned to pick up those TV signals of Neil Armstrong's historic moonwalk. According to The Dish, the job went to a telescope outside a backwater town where everybody knew each other and didn't take life very seriously. Sam Neill plays the head of the listening team as they blink in the spotlight of overnight fame.
The Americans spend 10 years, billions of dollars to let us watch man walk on the moon, and in the end it falls to you blokes. I mean, how do you feel about that? A lot better before you happened, you trap.
Just as the American astronauts are approaching the moon for their historic landing, the electric power goes out in that small Australian town and catastrophe strikes.
Look, the power's back on. Everything's under control.
Except we've lost Apollo 11.
Well, except for that.
What to do? The Australians instinctively decide to fake it.
Parks, we've lost your signal. Confirm status.
Houston, this is Parks. We still have a strong signal. Must be a relay problem.
Copy that, Parks. We'll look into it. Stand by.
The Dish is a terrific comedy filled with cheerful cynicism about human nature, and it's curiously moving, too, because these obscure scientists in the Australian outback are proud to be part of man's first walk on the moon. Sam Neill, as the leader of the team, supplies the gravity that makes the others even funnier. The dish was directed by Rob Sitch, the same man who made The Castle, that great comedy about the family living next door to the airport runway. This one is another winner.
It is a winner. I liked it a lot, and we've seen so many bad and loud and just crummy-looking comedies in the first couple of months this year, something like The Dish. And yeah, it's whimsical. It's sometimes a little, maybe a little self-conscious of how smart it is, but so what? You know, it's telling a great story, great use of music from 1969, terrific cast. You've got Patrick Warburton, who people remember from as Putty from the Seinfeld show, who does a really nice job. He's the American scientist who comes over there to set things straight. But each character, as you mentioned, has a little more dimension.
What's interesting here is that in Australian comedies, people are allowed to be sweet and whimsical and colorful and eccentric and complicated and human. And so often in American comedies, even including the one we just reviewed, American characters are so broad and so vulgar by comparison. In this movie, to call it a family comedy would be the kiss of death, because it's just not objectionable. That makes it a family comedy, but it's also
got a little bit of an edge to it.
It's comedy for grown-ups who appreciate a little intelligence, a little edge, a little historical irony.
And somehow when we get to the end, it's very moving with the last pictures of the moon landing.
Yes, it is.
All right, coming up later in the show, Cameron Diaz, Holly Hunter, and Glenn Close lead an all-star cast in things you can tell just by looking at her.
I took a home pregnancy test, and it lit up like a Christmas tree. I have a hunch his wife is not going to like it.
Coming up next, everyone's a celebrity in 15 minutes.
You want headlines? You want to make money? You want to be a celebrity? Shoot me! Bleed up!
Robert De Niro and Edward Burns team up to hunt down a couple of crazy immigrants on a killing spree in 15 minutes, yet another movie that takes a sanctimonious tone about media violence while filling the screen with enough blood to overflow the New York City sewer system. De Niro plays a wily detective who's so famous he's on the cover of People magazine. Burns plays an arson investigator who arrives on the scene of a fire and, in time-honored star system tradition, immediately uncovers evidence that somehow eluded everyone else.
What's he looking for? He's looking for a timer.
Here you go. Big double homicide.
The alternately idiotic and ingenious killers are videotaping their crimes, and Kelsey Grammer plays the sleazy tabloid anchor who wants to broadcast one of the tapes.
All right, I'll meet you. I need two things from you. I want exclusivity, and you will surrender to me.
Bring cash.
With its blazing visuals and its over-the-top acting from big stars, 15 minutes is kind of similar to 3,000 Miles to Graceland. But that movie didn't try to pretend it was something other than a slam-bang thrill ride. What offended me about 15 minutes were the heavy-handed social commentary points about the liberal justice system, the psychologically junky mentality of daytime talk shows, and the cynical nature of TV news. Yeah, and what about a movie that rolls around in these images and then takes a position of moral authority? That, to me, is exploitation.
Oh, come on, Richard. I liked it a lot more than you did. Have you ever heard of a backfire? Have you ever heard of a backfire where they start a forest fire in order to stop the other forest fire? That would be a defense of this movie. It's trying to do what it's attacking in order to show you how sleazy it is. And also, I love the irony of these two guys who come to America, one from Czechoslovakia, one from Russia, in search of the American dream. Now, in years past, the American dream meant something else. Today, it means I'm going to murder people on my digital camera, sell it to reality television for $1 million, then get off by copying a plea because I was temporarily insane. I mean, that's really kind of pointed, don't you agree?
That's really kind of absurd. And these guys, they go from being these bumbling fools with hair-trigger tempers. I mean, the one guy's so crazy, I'm surprised he didn't just start killing people in the customs department. And then all of a sudden, they're experts on arson, and they get all this equipment, and they know how to hotwire all these buildings so they can blow up.
Those are great, colorful characters of the sort we haven't seen in a while. Also, Edward Burns. Of course, he's the guy who finds out there was a fire set. He's the fire investigator. No wonder the cops didn't figure it out. They're not fire investigators. He's got a scene in this movie that is so good where he helps that woman escape from that burning apartment. That scene is fabulous.
I'll give you that scene. There were moments where it was exciting, but they're just so silly. And his motivations, the Edward Burns character, when he snaps, it makes no sense. It follows no logical pattern from what happened with his character. And Roger, you end up with the same kind of scenes we've seen a million times before, where the reporter's going to get punched out, and everybody applauds for that, and the guy holding the girlfriend hostage, and then, of course, you know the other guy's going to aim the gun at the guy. How many times have you seen this before?
You compared this movie to 3,000 Miles to Graceland. This movie is about something, and as a point of view, it wants to say something, and that's refreshing.
I think this movie's really hypocritical.
Coming up next, Cameron Diaz and Amy Brenneman are sisters with secrets and things you can tell just by looking at her.
His daughter is blind.
I fell in love with a girl who worked in a circus, and I ran away with her.
Wow. That's quite a story.
Yeah, it's not all that exciting. I became a bookkeeper with that circus. Perhaps you thought I was a lion tamer?
Kathy Baker and Danny Woodburn star in things you can tell just by looking at her in that scene. They're new neighbors, and they both sense a certain unexpected chemistry. This is one of the best films at Sundance a year ago, but it mysteriously never got theatrical distribution, and now it's playing all month on Showtime, and good for Showtime. It tells the bittersweet stories of 7 women and their problems with love and life. Cameron Diaz plays a blind woman. Amy Brenneman is her sister.
I gotta get that lipstick that doesn't smear the glass when you drink.
Is he taking you out to dinner as well?
He wants to, but he's not ready for my table manners.
Well, his daughter is blind. I'm sure he's understanding.
His daughter and a woman are not the same thing.
In another story strand, Callista Flockhart looks at the cards and finds disturbing news for Glenn Close.
You have a tendency to become quickly infatuated, and then you get embarrassed or depressed because things didn't turn out the way that you expected them to. You're a daydreamer. And you should be careful because you definitely have a tendency to set yourself up for falls.
And a pregnant Holly Hunter asks her married lover, Gregory Hines, what she should do about the baby.
I'm 6 weeks pregnant.
What happened?
I didn't have the diaphragm with me that time in Palm Springs.
This is a lovely film, sad, lonely, funny, filled with a tenderness that people have for one another. There's a moment when Kathy Baker goes to tuck in her sleeping teenage son, and she smells his breath. And it's almost unbearably touching. The stories interlock. Characters turn up again. For example, Glenn Close is Holly Hunter's doctor, and Callista Flockhart turns up sharing memories with her dying lover, who's played by Valeria Golino. The writer and director is Rodrigo Garcia. This is his debut. He has a fantastic instinct for revealing moments, for crucial lines of dialogue, for little things that show you how people really feel. Things you can tell just by looking at her. Is a really special film. It's on Showtime all month.
It kind of reminded me in a way of You Can Count on Me, with its pacing and the terrific acting, and I really like the way the stories interlock. My favorite stories involve Holly Hunter and Gregory Hines. You know, he's married to someone else, but their affair is almost like a marriage. He's got keys to her place, and they have a routine where she makes him dinner. And also Cameron Diaz and Amy Brenneman.
Yeah,
Cameron Diaz, you know, playing this blind woman who's got a real edge. And this movie does something I hadn't seen before. It shows how people react to having a blind person in their midst, even people who care about her.
Yeah, I love the
where
scene.
they can kind of roll their eyes at her and she doesn't know about it.
I love the scene where the guy she dated last night is getting off an elevator as she gets on, and he doesn't speak to her because he knows she can't see him, but she senses his scent. She smells him in the elevator, and she knows that he deceived her. She knows something about that guy now.
Yeah, what a
It's very important to her. And the relationship she has with her sister, because in a way, she's the dominant one, and the other sister is kind of waiting on her and doesn't really have a life of her own and tries to fool her on another occasion as to who she's meeting to go out with.
Yeah, they actually, you know, they exploit her blindness even though they care about her. We don't usually see that in a movie.
It's
a lot of really good moments like that in this film. Okay, our next movie is Me, You, Them, a family comedy based on a true story of a woman who lived with 3 husbands under one roof. Regina Casa stars as Darlene, the big-boned mother of all Earth mothers who acquires 3 husbands and 4 babies, yet still finds enough time to work back-breaking shifts in the rocky fields of northeast Brazil. Darlene already has 1 baby when she receives a decidedly unromantic proposal from husband number 1, a nasty cuss named Osias, played by Lima Duarte.
Construa mais ligeiro. Se for do seu agrado, a casa é sua. De minha parte, o acordo está feito. Qual vai ser a resposta?
Resposta do quê?
Não gostasse da casa? Tu casa comigo e eu mesmo que se a casa for sua.
Osias spends nearly every sleeping and waking minute in his hammock listening to the radio or bitching at Darlene. He hardly seems to care when Darlene gives birth to a baby that obviously isn't his, or when his mild-mannered cousin takes up with Darlene. Me, You, Them has its moments of charm, and director Andrusha Waddington paints many a stark and beautiful scene of the Brazilian landscape. But the story moves at a Burroughs pace and rarely yields any true laughs. As for Darlene, I thought she was rather dull-witted and passive. Why is every man after her? She also seems to use her children mostly as props. I wonder who's watching them as she's dancing and fornicating her nights away. Me, You, Them certainly isn't a painful film, but there's not enough here for me to recommend it.
I don't think you really represent it very fairly. I mean, this is not supposed to be a comedy. It's not supposed to be fast-paced. It's a story about this woman.
I think it's supposed to be a comedy in many attempts.
It's a human comedy in a way, but it's not a big, lots of laughs comedy.
No, it certainly isn't.
This woman is able to create an environment in which these three men are able to live together in a macho country like Brazil. Regina Casa, who plays Darlene, is, I guess, the Oprah of Brazil. She's the biggest TV star down there.
She's a big superstar in
And it's kind of interesting how she becomes this Earth Mother, this person whose simple, direct approach to practical matters, like let's build another room, let's get another hammock, let's take care of this guy. To me, it's kind of fascinating the way this dynamic works.
But we never see why she makes these decisions. She just seems to go along,
because
and if a guy lunges for her, she never says no.
Because she's poor and has no power until she has to make them.
So she's poor and she has no power, and her answer to that is get married several times and have a bunch of different kids with a bunch of different men.
They're all happy by the end.
Well, there are things where she, at one point, has to give up one of the kids for no real reason that's outlined. I just don't think it was very well paced, and I still think it's supposed to be a comedy.
Well, it's not that kind of a comedy.
What kind of a comedy is a comedy that doesn't make me laugh? It's the kind of comedy that I'm not going to recommend.
You smile with recognition rather than yucking all the time.
Well, you smiled and I didn't.
Okay, when we come back, the two best films of last year are brand new on home video, and they're my twin picks of the week.
Ebert and Roeper's Video Pick of the Week is brought to you by Nestle Raisinets. Try Raisinets in new, convenient, resealable bags.
In just another week, we'll all be watching the Oscar cast, but it's going to be a little melancholy for me because my two favorite films from last year were not among the Best Picture nominees. But the good news is both movies are arriving in video stores this week on both VHS and DVD. My choice for the year's best film last year was Almost Famous. And if you haven't seen it yet, what are you waiting for? Here's Oscar nominee Kate Hudson as a groupie who's in love with a rock guitarist, but she has pity on the 15-year-old kid who has a crush on her.
I always tell the girls, never take it seriously. If you never take it seriously, you never get hurt. If you never get hurt, you always have fun. And if you ever get lonely, you just go to the record store and visit your friends.
So you and Russell...
No! Russell has a girlfriend. And I can't even say her name.
That's Patrick Fugit as the kid who has an assignment from Rolling Stone magazine. Billy Crudup plays the rock star, and Oscar nominee Frances McDormand is the young journalist's mother.
I'm Russell Hammond.
So this is the famous Russell Hammond.
And here's a scene from Wonder Boys, which was second on my list of the year's best films. Can anyone tell me why Michael Douglas didn't get a Best Actor nomination? This is one of the best performances in his career as an English professor who's lost in a fog both personally, professionally, and pharmaceutically.
It started out as a small book. Probably about 250, 300 pages. It had gotten a little larger in scope.
Almost Famous and Wonder Boys are the kinds of films that make going to the movies exhilarating. They're smart, they're about people who have opinions and values and wonderful, quirky personalities, and they're now out on both tape and DVD. They're my video picks of the week.
Now, there's a new pup in town.
I want to be wild and free.
You won't last 5 minutes out here.
What a blast! Woohoo! I'm a junkyard dog!
Get over yourself, house pet.
That's my boy. Disney's Lady and the Tramp 2, rated G, now on video and Disney DVD.
Now let's take another look at the movies we reviewed on this week's show. 2 thumbs up for Heartbreakers, the raucous comedy with Jennifer Love Hewitt. It opens next week. 2 thumbs up for the smart and warm comedy from Australia, The Dish. We split, though, on 15 minutes. Roger thought it worked as satire. I thought it was hypocritical garbage. But 2 thumbs up for the all-star cast in the beautifully spun Things You Can Tell Just by Looking at Her. You can find it on Showtime this month. And finally, we split on Me, You, Them. Roger liked the earthy comedy. I thought it was mudbound.
And The Dish is opening in showcase theaters now, and then it goes a little wider on April the 6th. And I think that's right with a movie like this. Instead of opening it everywhere at once, let people discover it gradually because it's a very special film.
And well worth searching for.
Remember, you can hear our reviews at Ebert-Roeper-movies.com and read us in print at suntimes.com. Next week, more new movies, including the comedy Say It Isn't So with Heather Graham, Chris Klein, and Sally Field.
Sweet Lord, she's your sister.
And The Tailor of Panama, a political thriller starring Pierce Brosnan and Oscar nominee Jeffrey Rush.
Casablanca without heroes.
That's next week, and until then, the balcony is closed.